Welcome, a very good afternoon. Welcome for today's webinar. I, Amrit Nagpal, Head of Preschool and ECC, is going to take you through a topic of magic in DAP. All right, stay tuned in. Once and for all, welcome. Welcome to the webinar. And now I'm going to take you through the topic for the day that we've selected is magic of developmentally appropriate practices in early years. When we talk about magic, let's first understand what are developmentally appropriate practices. So let's know about developmentally appropriate practices. Developmentally appropriate practices, according to NACI, that is National Association for Education of Young Children, USA, is a non-profitable organization that works towards making policies and frameworks alongside with para-educators, advocates, policymakers, teachers, special educators within the field of early education. They've come up with a framework and guidelines that help us based on research, that help us to understand that how young children learn and develop and what is the most effective way of teaching and learning to the child's optimal level. Now, if you wonder what these DAPs are, now DAPs are for teachers, educators, caregivers. Most of the DAPs are based on different developmental domains. Like physical development, social, emotional, and cognitive development. Now, how do we understand these developments is based on a lot of theories based on child development. A lot of theories that are based on child development, their understanding comes from cultural backgrounds, family settings, whether the child comes from a nuclear family or a joint family, depending on these. Now, I would like to tell you a story. Imagine yourself to be a parent and you've been a parent for the first time and you have a child born in your house and you have relatives who've got clothes and shoes and a lot of things for your newborn baby. Now, most of the clothes that you see in the market today are very fancy, and you, as parents, you get very excited and making your children wear these clothes. And you suddenly realize that you go to a pediatrician and then he says that, how would you want your three-month-old baby to wear shoes or your 6-month-old baby to wear shoes? And the pediatrician says that, you know, these are not developmentally appropriate for your child because the child's feet is yet in a growing stage and the child is not going to walk for a couple of months. So it's very important for educators and parents to understand what developmentally appropriate practices are, because they help us to understand the growth of children across developmental domains. And these not only provide us with guidelines, they also provide these guidelines and framework help develop policies for us. Now, DAP focuses only on one thing, the right fit at the right time. Then, now, even for educators, we need to understand that what DAP is. DAP in what content to teach our children. How much should we teach our children? How effectively the students are learning, and what do we teach them? How do we teach them? And all of this is in relation to their cognitive domains, to their other domains, and most of these domains are interconnected. Now, very oftenly, according to developmentally appropriate practices, there is a huge debate on whether to introduce cursive and at what age to introduce cursive writing. Now, if you are very well aware about your DAPs in your early years, you will realize that the cursive writing does not match to the child's physical development and cognitive development at the same time. So these domains, cursive writing should be able to wait for a couple of more years. Now, let's understand what are the core components or core considerations of the DAP. Now, the first and foremost, most important component of DAP is that We need to have educators as well as parents, caregivers. Everybody needs to have an understanding about child development and their learning. Now, when I mean child development, I mean educators need to have the knowledge at what age, at what stage children develop and how much do they develop. What are their particular interests at a particular age or stage? And how do we engage children at each and every stage? All the child development principles are interlinked to the progress of their learning. Understanding what is age appropriateness, understanding what is individual appropriateness is very, very, very important, because as we say that and we believe that each child is very unique and each child has his or her own pace of development. Now, coming back to the third most important consideration or component of DAP, that is understanding what is culturally appropriate. Now, we live in a country like India. India is so culturally diversified. We have so many different cultures, and each culture there are certain social expectations, certain expectations as a part of the culture, and we not only need to respect those cultures and have a curriculum that is very culturally appropriate to our culture. Now, let's move on further and understand what are the different principles of child development and learning, because these are very important not only for the educators today, but also for caregivers. It's very, very, very important. So these principles of child development, let's brush up on them, because if you're an educator, I'm sure you need a lot of refreshment and brushing up on your principles in child development and learning. So let's look at the first principle. All areas of development and learning are important. Why are they important? Because each one of them are interrelated. They are interconnected. All your physical development is connected to your social, emotional, and cognitive development too. All developments are important and need to progress at the same time and need to develop at the same time. Then we have learning and development, because learning and development always follows a certain sequence. Now, what is this sequence? Now, for example, let's take up language development that is in children. The moment that the baby is born, the first thing that the baby does is starts crying. And it's a loud cry or a shrilly cry. Slowly that you realize that children start moving from crying to cooing, because cooing is when they start hearing sounds in the environment like ooh, ooh, ooh. Moving from cooing to babbling, where they start connecting words that they keep hearing in the environment, which would be something like baba, tata, papa, mum. And then moving on to telegraphic speech. Telegraphic speech is where children start saying in 2 words, dada, office, papa, go, mama, come. Moving on to grammatically incorrect sentences and then speaking in fluently grammatical sentences. So language development follows a sequence. Most of the developmental areas also follow a sequence. Moving on, we have development and learning that proceed at varying rates. Like we said, each child is very, very different, and each child's development and learning will vary at their own individual pace. And as teachers, as educators, as caregivers, we need to respect that, and we need to allow the children to learn and grow at their respective pace. With constant encouragement and acknowledgement, I'm sure your children are going to do very, very, very well. Moving further, development and learning result from an interaction and maturation and experience. So most of the development and learning that happens is from interactions. So if you see that when a mother or any caregiver is constantly interacting with the child, right from when the child is born, it differs a lot in the child's interaction, that the child will be more linguistically higher. Though children at birth cannot respond back to their parents, but their understanding is there when their parents talk to them. Are you listening? Are you talking to me? How are you? When you keep talking to children like that, you believe me that the interaction and the linguistic level is comparatively far more mature and far more experienced. So constant interaction, whether at home, whether in the classroom, needs to be there. Now, if you see mostly pre-nursery children, your 2-year-olds, 3-year-olds do not interact a lot. They do not respond a lot, but they expect the teachers to keep talking to them and interacting with them continuously so that they are more aware of the new vocabulary words, and this reflects in their linguistic skills. Early experiences have profound effect on development and learning. Now, what does this mean, early experiences? The more earlier we start providing different experiences to children, the more we realize that the synaptic connections in the brain keep growing. And when the synaptic connections in the brain keep growing, there is a profound effect on development and learning for the particular for children. Development proceeds towards greater complexity, self-regulation, and symbolic or representational capacities. Now, a little difficult to understand. Let me break it down for you. Development in humans is highly complex. We are highly complex when we grow. But as preschoolers, we need to realize that we need to self-regulate ourselves. When we get angry, we need to calm ourselves. There are many techniques that educators and caregivers use at home or in school in terms of self-regulating. One of the techniques is you take up a balloon and blow inside the balloon. There are calming down effects that we do. We do breathe in and breathe out exercises. We have a lot of yoga exercises that are done as a part of the classroom. So these help self-regulation and calming of emotions. Symbolic representation. If you see that children, a 2-year-old's attention span is very different from a 6-year-old's attention span. Now, when children are in pretend play corner in their younger age, they usually take up a piece of block and they pretend it to be a car and they start throwing vroom, vroom, vroom. Or they'll take up a piece of a cord or a wire and pretend it to be the telephone and pretend as if they're talking to their friends or their parents. So this is what I mean by symbolic and representational capacities. Children at this age do show these capacities. Now, we've brushed up with 6 principles. Let's move on to the 6 other principles. Children develop the best way when they feel secure in their relationships. Why secure? Security is very important in terms of relationships because it gives us an emotional and social compatibility. We need to feel secure and safe in our environment, whether we are at home, whether we are in the school, whether it's any environment, safe and secure to feel free to ask questions, freedom that I can share my ideas readily with my parent or my caregiver or my educator. Then, moving on, development and learning are influenced by multiple social cultural contexts. Usually in a country like India, we have in one classroom, we have children with completely different cultures. They come from different cultures, they come from different societies, they come from different language backgrounds. So when they sit in a class, and there is a lot of effect of bilingualism happening in the classroom. There is a lot of effect of bilingualism happening in the classroom. So we need to encourage that because this helps develop their linguistic skills. And not only linguistic skills, but also other social skills with other children. That's very, very, very important. Children learn in a variety of ways. That is so true. Children learn in a lot of variety of ways. We have children who are visual learners. Most adults are visual learners. We also have children who are auditory learners. Now, when we have children who are auditory learners, you'll often see that in the class, they keep putting their ear like this and looking out of the window, and you'll realize that probably they aren't even listening to you, but they actually are. Okay, so we realize we left just with 3 more principles. Now, play is a very, very, very important and the most important principle as a part of child development and learning, because through play is what we promote self-regulation, physical development, language development, cognition, social competency, social skills, emotional skills. And why is play one of the most important components and principles of child development? Is because at this age and stage, children only understand play. The biggest compliment that any educator can ever get is, I went to school today and I played and I only played. That is the biggest compliment any educator can get. We have development and learning. We also need to understand that development and learning happens when we engage children and we provide them with a lot of challenging activities. Children love repetition. One of their favorite rhymes that they keep doing in the school is, "The wheels on the bus go round and round." That is the favorite of most of the children across all the preschool ages. Now, the challenge is when we keep adding more and more paragraphs to the same rhyme, when we keep challenging them to come up with new vocabulary words. That's the biggest challenge. Once the child has mastered a skill, it is very important that the child accepts a challenge and gets something more challenging so that learning and development can be optimized. Children's experiences shape their motivation and approaches in learning. That's very important. Whatever the child experiences in the real world will definitely will shape his approaches towards learning and life. If a child has always been told that, okay, be scared of a dog bites, the child for the rest of the life is going to be scared from a dog. But if the child is raised in an environment or is made to share experiences and made to learn that, yes, animals are a part of the environment. They're as loving as us. And that makes a lot of difference. You will see a lot of difference in the child's approaches towards learning and towards life. All right, we've gone through the 12 principles of child development and learning, but believe me, these 12 principles and many more principles of child development and learning are very, very well brushed up with an educator who is early childhood educator, who is completely trained and qualified, or is trained in entity learning or entity teacher training. So we need to have educators who are completely qualified in early childhood education and care, so that they completely understand the need of applying these principles of child development to every child's learning and bring it to their classroom. That's very, very, very important. Okay, let's move further. Let's move further and understand the 5 strategies that are very effective for teaching. Now, why are these 5 strategies very, very effective for teaching? Not only teaching, why teaching at home or in the school? They're very, very, very important. The first strategy is creating a caring environment and creating a caring community for learners. So we need to understand that children need to feel very safe in the school. First thing, if the child does not feel safe in the school, there is no point. I not only need to feel safe in the school or at home, but I also need to feel safe and have the freedom in interacting with my caregivers, with my parents, with my educators, because that is the freedom that we need to give to the school. And we need to give to the children and the learners. So freedom is extremely, extremely important. Now, moving on further, we have teaching to enhance development and learning. Now, not only teaching to enhance development and learning, we also need to understand that why are these teaching criteria important? Because when we know these criteria, as an educator, we can acknowledge and challenge children all the time. Acknowledging and challenging students is very, very, very important as a part of effective teaching in the classrooms. Now, the most important and effective strategy for teaching is planning a curriculum that is not only going to help you achieve important goals, but also understanding what am I expecting out of my child? What am I expecting out of my child? What are my learning outcomes? What do I do? What do I do and plan a curriculum? So first, my learning outcomes need to be very strategically planned. And then as an educator or as a caregiver, I need to do my backward planning and understand that how would I accomplish this goal? Then moving on, assessing. That's very important. In India, all that parents want to know is how my child is fared and what is the assessment. Now, before we move on, we run to assessment. It's very important that after we have accomplished certain goals, we realize and we understand what kind of assessment we want to do. So that also the teacher, the educator, or the caregiver can focus on that. And how do we assess that? Now, assessment, if I'm trying to assess my child for social skills, I probably will give a group activity to the children and see if they can work in a team. Otherwise, there's no point in assessing them for social criteria. So the assessment that we do for children, or the assessment, has to be very logical, has to be very thoughtful. And a lot of assessments can be done. Most assessments can be done through videos. We can click videos in the classrooms and help understand and assess children. We can give them different hands-on activities and help them assess. We can give them certain project work and help them assess, rather than just giving them some worksheets. And obviously some of the other tasks where we can click photographs for children, live videos for children, put them on social media to understand whether they have had the knowledge of whatever goals that you have been creating for them. Lastly, and most important aspect of effective teaching is that establishing reciprocal relationship with families. Children come to school, but we forget that families are very, very, very important. And for every child, family needs to be a very important part of everyday's learning. That's very, very, very important because the family is the first home that children usually get. So we can't remove family. So we have to keep inviting parents, grandparents, extended families for various activities in the school, sending project work at home where the parent and the child can together do the projects, so that they establish a relationship and work together to achieve a common goal. Now, if you ever wondered why DAPs? DAP sounds so perfect in theory, right? For teachers and educators and caregivers. But believe me, the knowledge of DAP comes when you start reading a lot about it, when you start applying this knowledge and application in real life. You will realize that DAPs are really, really, really very important. Because even as an educator, if you go to a school, we may have been assigned a particular grade or a level, and suddenly in the mid-year, we realize that there is one teacher who's on maternity leave and I have been transferred from my level to the other level because I have to fill in shoes and proxy for that teacher. So I, as an educator, need to know about all the developmentally appropriate practices that happen at each level, at each stage. That's very, very, very important. The basics of DAPs should be known to children should be known to educators at all times, as well as parents. Because these DAPs help us understand and make us more stronger. Okay, let's move further. Let's move further. Let's understand the 10 effective teaching strategies that we have. Now, the 10 effective teaching strategies that we have that help most teachers and most educators already know that. This is not only for educators, but also for parents. Firstly, learn to acknowledge your children. Learn to acknowledge what they say, what they do in the classroom. That is very, very, very important. Acknowledge children. And how would you acknowledge them? You ask them, how are they? How are they? What do they do? Acknowledge them for everything. Acknowledge them. Then encourage them for their efforts and persistence. I really like the way you did that activity. Try a little more harder. You will definitely get there. Provide them with genuine feedback, specific feedback. I really like the way you started reading. You started joining all the sounds of the letters, and you have now been able to read your word. Congratulations. Very good. Keep it up. Be good role models. Have good attitudes towards children. If as an educator or a caregiver or a parent, you refuse to listen to your own children, definitely the children are going to do the same for you. So when you're modeling the correct behavior, I'm listening to you. I'm sorry I missed that sentence out. Could you repeat for me again? That's how you model the right behavior. Demonstrate something. And when you demonstrate it, ensure that you're doing it yourself too. That's very important. Adapting to challenges. Adapt challenges. Because when you post challenges to children, children definitely have the abilities to come and overcome them. Ask questions. Ask open-ended as well as closed-ended questions. Provoke their thinking. Allow them to think. Allow them ask, what would you do if you landed up in a situation? What would you do if you landed up here? Or what would you do if there were no trees? So keep provoking their thoughts and questions. That's very, very, very important to understand how much your child content knowledge is. Give assistance and clue whenever required. Keep hinting children. Keep giving all scaffolding that you require to give children, but do not give the answer, because the moment you give the answer, you rob them of all these magical things. You rob them of thinking. You rob them of critical and creative thinking. Provide information through facts which are known. Labels, information providing is very, very, very important. And in case children come up with certain questions to you and you really do not know the answer at that point of time, so do tell the children that you are going to get back to them with the correct amount of information. Give directions to children. Children like being directed and given instructions, but whenever you give instructions and directions, make sure that you're very polite and humble. And while you're giving directions and to children, make sure you're very, very, very specific, to the point, short and crisp, because multiple instructions is what preschoolers definitely don't understand. So the shorter the instruction, the better for them. Now, like I said, DAPs are very, very, very important, because DAPs help us to understand the right fit at the right time. And to help us understand the right fit at the right time, it is very, very, very important for us to understand the DAPs. DAPs are not only for parents or for caregivers or for educators, they are for everybody who deals with the age group between 0 to 8 years at least. DAPs help us understand where the child stands. DAPs help us to understand what content to teach the child, how much to teach the child. DAP completely in a nutshell gives us everything that educators really need to know. It is very important for the school community and the home community to be involved in understanding the best practices, best DAP practices. Now, lastly, I would like to sum up saying that DAPs are very important. They're very important and very crucial for learning. We need to respect individual needs. We need to respect how unique children are for what they are. We need to accept cultural backgrounds, whether they are family settings, whether the child comes from a nuclear family setting or a joint family setting. All I'm saying is, sooner or faster, we need to be educated as educators, caregivers, for this whole idea about DAPs. And then understanding whether the child can do this or cannot do this. It's never too late to know your DAPs. Please read a lot about DAPs and stay tuned. We'll have a lot more webinars coming up from Birla Edutech. You will have a lot more information being provided on various topics. And before I end, just like my topic said, magic of DAPs. The magic only happens when you understand your DAPs very, very well. So it's truly a magical journey when you know your DAPs as educators, as caregivers, as parents. I hope this knowledge, this content knowledge what we gave you has refreshed your memory. Please note and understand that DAP is just a guideline and a framework. It is not the curriculum. The curriculum that teachers make in the classroom needs to have DAPs kept in mind before planning. So now we're going to take up some questions. Just give us 2 minutes. Give us 2 minutes. All right, we have a question. From Ms. Devrukkar, who says that, are there any books on DAP? Yes, there are a couple of books that you could read, which are based on DAP. You have Basics of DAPs by Carol and friends. We have Basics of DAPs by Eva Phillips and Miss Amy. So there are a lot of books on All right, let's move on to the next question. We have a question from Mr. Avinash Kumar, who says that there is a child in the classroom in KG1 who does not come out of her place. We're trying a lot of ways, but not succeeded till now. What to do? All right, Mr. Avinash. Firstly, we would really want to see whether this child is a new child, whether this child has come to the school, has joined the school just for the first time. If the child has just joined the school for the first time and or has been shifted from another school to this school, please give the child some time to settle down in the school, because there is a lot of settlement that requires on part of the children. I'm sure that the child over a period of time will be able to make friends and will be able to succeed in coming out of his or her place. And do keep us posted with if you have any other further questions on that. Hello, we have the entire team of Birla Open Minds, Preschool, Kompally. Would you like to ask something? A very good afternoon.
Please ask later. First of all, what is the DAP you told me about? All are joining, anybody can.
Yes, do you have any questions for us? Yes, Ms. Suma, do you have any questions for us?
Yes, actually our teachers have a question. Yes.
Sure.
Yes, please. Do we have any notes for DAP, ma'am?
You will get a lot of guidelines on DAP. We have NACI. NACI is the full form of NACI is National Association for the Education of Young Children. This is from US. They give a lot of framework and guidelines on DAP, and you can also refer to DAPs by referring to a lot of theorists in the child development field. So we have different theories like Jean Piaget's theory, which works on cognitive development, a lot on cognitive development. We have Erik Erikson's psychosocial theory that focuses on the child's need for socializing. And we have Kohlberg's moral development theories. These are just some theories that that consist of DAPs. These are the basis. So you can do a lot of follow up and read a lot about them. Read a lot about these theories, especially in the field of child development. We have two of the major theories that we have are Erik Erikson and Jean Piaget. They are very, very, very important and must know by all the educators. So please go and read about them.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome. Can we have another question? Okay. Let's take up a question. We have team from Noida.
Hi, Amrit. We just, hi, are you able to? Yeah. We just want to discuss one of the case in our school. We have a child in K1.
Correct.
Now, this child is quite a sharp child. As far as extra activity is concerned, his understanding is pretty well. But when it comes to the curriculum writing, maybe a sleeping line or a standing line, which is quite a lower level thing for a K1 student. We face a lot of difficulty as far as his concentration level is concerned, his grip on the pencil is concerned, and he's kind of unwilling to do what is required of him during the classroom sessions. This can be attributed to one of the reasons might be that we felt that he was eligible for nursery standard, but the parents insisted that he should we should go ahead with the K1 and the child is pretty knowledgeable. Maybe a set of over ambitious parents. So now, what would you suggest that would be the developmentally appropriate practice for a teacher to handle such kind of a case, wherein he has a pressure from the parents' end as well, and we have a curriculum to follow.
Okay. So firstly, what I would like you to do is firstly get the child's exact age in years and months broken down, and then see where does the child fit in which age criteria. So for example, if the child has not completed 4 years till now and is still in KG1, the child is more or less fit for a nursery class according to DAPs. So what we would say now, since the child has already come to KG1 and we can't get the child backward towards nursery, so the best thing would be do a lot of hands-on activities with this particular child, because obviously finger dexterity has not matured. We need to work on finger dexterity for the child to now start writing, because writing is also an important skill in Indian schools. We can't ignore writing big time. So what I would suggest is do a lot of hands-on activity with the child, hands-on activity like scribbling, paper tearing, paper crumpling, putting pista shells on a particular place, using the pin, ensuring that the pincer grip has become more strong. So doing a lot of finger rhymes as a part of the school. So we do a lot of finger rhymes with where is thumbkin, using a lot of fingers, giving a lot of exercise to the finger dexterity and the muscles of the fingers. So we start from there, because now we know that the child is not very equipped. So let's start from the dexterity, increasing the finger muscles, and then slowly moving on towards standing line and sleeping line, and then way forward would be writing of letters and numbers. So a lot of hands-on activity. Hands-on activity could be related towards pouring water from one glass to the other, your weaving activities, so where the eye-hand coordination is focus a lot on eye-hand coordination first, as well as a lot of skill development in terms of fine motor skills, and a little on the gross motor skills, because we need to ensure that all the muscles of the hands and legs are completely in sync, which will help further in pincer grip, because, and a lot of massaging to the a lot of massages towards the wrist, towards the finger muscles, so that the finger muscles loosen up and further help promote writing. So just basic learning to massage, learning to do some activities with the wrist, doing a lot of physical activity related to the wrist. Let's wiggle is what most preschoolers love doing. Wiggle your fingers, wiggle your toes, wiggle your elbows, so that the muscles are really loosened up. Focusing a lot on crackling, paper tearing, scribbling, random scribbling, and then focus on what kind of scribbles that the child does. Are the scribbles controlled? Are they uncontrolled scribbles? Are they random scribbles? So this will also help us understand at what stage of writing the child is right now, which will further help us to design activities which are finger related and fine motor skills related. And then further than is what we give them a lot of worksheets. So maybe, standing on the straight line, taking the tray and walking on the straight line, walking on the curved line. So the child understands a lot of spatial awareness also. And then the last step would be moving them towards giving them fun sheets.
So basically, you mean to say that we have to concentrate on the motor skills first, and then bring him over to the curriculum requirements.
Yes, first work on the fine motor skills, so that we have left no learning gaps. All the learning gaps have been filled for this particular child, and then we think about moving forward.
Thank you so much, Amrit. Thanks.
Thank you.
Your internet connection is unstable.
Okay, we have a team from Lucknow, Bombs Lucknow.
Hi, Amrit.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello, can we see you?
Yes, I think.
Yes, now we can. Yes, how are you all doing?
We're doing good, thank you.
Good. Do you have any question for us?
Yes, I was listening to all the questions. I also have one question in my mind that though we understand that the children should learn the developmentally appropriate activities, but there's a kind of pressure from the parents because they feel their children are going to go to formal schools and they feel that in Birla curriculum we are going very slow in terms of writing. Like they compare, other schools make the children write 2-letter, 3-letter, 4-letter words at this age, whereas in K1 you are just doing ABCD and you're doing sounds. Though we tell them that we want children to be perfect in what they are learning and then move ahead, but then it's a kind of challenge for us also because they say that, but in entrance they will be asked these questions, they will be asked to write, they will be asked to speak. So how do you go about it? And also about Hindi.
Hello? 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 We've lost. Hello?
No, it is. And then you are talking about development appropriate teaching and all that, right?
Hello?
You have to add it with the curriculum. You have to add it with the match. Then, if I'm checking present other course, you take it with the child will lead to some other stuff, right? We have to part with the other curriculum.
Hello.
Going through the DAP.
Frozen screen at
You can't be competitive.
Can you hear us?
Parents were saying in other school they finished teaching and you are still in the ABCD. No ma.
We will come back to your question once we have on again.
You should not go beyond it. Hello.
Hello.
Oral, not writing. Oral. They just write it once, but they don't. But in Johnson, we had 3-letter word, 2-letter word. There was that sentences also. Yes, but K1 only. I worked for Johnson Grammar School.
Just give us a minute.
It's there. I worked for 2 years now. There I saw children writing those introduction.
All right. We move on back to Team Lucknow. We just had a frozen screen with them. Okay, Team Lucknow. Can we have you? Can you see us? We've lost them. We've lost the connection with them for now. We will get back to you later.
We're back.
Okay, we have a team from Bombay, Nagar.
They are not suited connection.
Okay.
Actually, yeah.
Which one is this? Rosie.
Just give us a minute. Please hang in there.
Actually, one is Okay. Actually, there is a concern.
Okay, we have our team from Birla Open Minds International School, LB Nagar. LB Nagar, can you see us?
I think rockets, but that list is given to the friend office to call the parent. Child is not coming from day one. In Gujarat, is there?
Okay, we move back to the question. Sorry, we've been losing some connections in between. Okay, we move back to Lucknow.
No?
Yes. Yes, Ms. Shalini and team, can you come back with the question? We were talking about developmentally appropriate practices. Yes, the curriculum at Birla Edutech follows developmentally appropriate practices to its optimal level. But we do understand that the biggest challenge that we face is convincing parents, because parents do not follow developmentally appropriate practices all the time. And the biggest challenge is in convincing them that what we are trying, what we are doing with the children in our school is really the right way for them to learn, because we're focusing in pre-nursery a lot on the fine motor skills, a lot on skill development. We focus a lot on social, emotional skills, and then moving on, and a lot of speaking, listening, speaking, and reading skills are being focused on at pre-nursery, nursery level. Moving on in K1, the biggest challenge is that in nursery, most schools start writing, and they may or may not follow developmentally appropriate practices.
Yeah,
but over here we do follow. So I'm sure that as a school and as a center head and your team, you face a lot of challenges in convincing parents for the same thing. But I believe that over a period of time, when parents really see the kind of effort that we put in our children in terms of curriculum, they realize that what good work we are doing with them, and they definitely over a period of time will get convinced with your ideas and our thought process, what work with children and what is the right way of working with children.
That boy is there.
So I hope we have answered your question, Team Lucknow.
Amrit, actually there was some network issue, so we couldn't hear you. Can you please repeat?
I shall. We'll just take up a question from another team, because we have a lot of teams by waiting in the queue. We will definitely come back to you. Please excuse us for that. I
Advait
will
is coming.
definitely get back to you.
In your class also, Advait is there. K Advait. VIT. In your class, AD VIT. That is also K Advait.
He's also there.
Both of them are coming regularly.
No, he's not coming.
He's not
Advait
coming.
is coming.
So they are calling their parents.
Okay, we have Team LB Nagar been waiting in the queue to ask us a question. Do we have Team LB Nagar?
Maybe it is same. The child is in Birla's class. You may have to strike off that name.
Maybe same.
But it is
No,
very
when I
easy.
I think we have lost connection with them.
Yeah.
My class, it's fine. No, when I asked about striking of the name, they said this boy is different from that boy. That's the reason I had to. No, when they have told us that the previous list, they told that the children.
Okay.
कन्नापुरम पूछ रहा था ना, कन्नापुरम को हटा दो, पूछ चुके क्वेश्चन, वो स्क्रीन लेके बैठा हूँ, कोई आ नहीं पा रहा उसको, बहुत देर से Rosina already. Want to speak with her?
Hello. Hello. We have a team from Gopi Birla School. Do you have a question for us? Just hold them. Just give us a minute. Just give us a minute, please. All right. So we have a question from another school. Can we have your question, please? So we have a school, Miss Richa. Okay. All right. Are there any more questions? Please raise your hands. We're just taking a few questions for the next 5 minutes and then we'll be closing for the day. Okay, we're just waiting for a few questions. All right. Another 2 more minutes to take up the questions. We have a question from Okay, just give us a moment. Hello?
Hello. Hello, ma'am.
Yes, Miss Suma. Do you have a question for us?
Yes, ma'am. Actually, I have, we have a child, a 2-year-old child in pre-nursery. The child is very much like, she doesn't sit in one place even for a second. All the time she's on her toes. It's really difficult to put her in one place, even to do an activity. And always, on her toes, literally. She doesn't put her feet completely down. On her toes and everywhere. So that's actually a challenge for her. How do we, make her sit in one place and play?
So what is the challenge? Making her sit in one place?
Yes, I mean at least a few seconds. We want her to sit down at one.
Your attention span is hardly 3 to 5 minutes. So all what I can tell the teacher is that you need to have more and more activities planned for this child, because this child seems to be an extremely kinesthetic child and requires a lot more physical activity than other children. So the best thing that you could do is, first thing in the morning, do a lot of physical activities with the child, jog, run from one place to the other. Ensure that you're doing a lot of energizers throughout the day, because this child completely needs a lot of body movements are very strong, and child needs to move every now and then to get 3 minutes of attention of this child. So you need to make sure that you have given enough physical activity and attention to this particular child, so that the child sits for at least 3 minutes, because that's all that this child will be able to sit in pre-nursery, not more than 3 to 5 minutes.
Even if she's playing no, ma'am, even if she's playing on a slide or, any play equipment, not even a second, she'll just sit, a little swing, immediately she goes to another. So enjoy that particular thing even for a second, that is
She's enjoyed in 1 second and she's very happy about it. So the teacher needs to be very well planned with multiple activities throughout the day, and ensure that the support staff in the classroom is also very hands-on and is also hands-on with a lot of equipments in the classroom, with just ready to go. You know that the child is going to get up in a second or 2 seconds or 3 seconds, ready to go. Okay, now you have beads. Okay, now beads are finished. Okay, now you have puzzles. Okay, puzzles are done. Okay, now you have something else. So keep.
So it's like one-on-one. Then in that case, it happens one-on-one with her. She's not with other children in the class. Then.
She will.
Whatever we have to plan separate.
Because the school has just started and children require a lot of time to settle down. We've just started your school somewhere in mid-June. Mid-June, we've hardly finished a month of school.
Yeah.
So there is still a lot of settling that the child needs to go through. So I would say, yes, you may have a little rocky road for the next 1 or 2 months, but you will see the child being settled very well by the time you hit the Dashera break. The child, you will see a lot of difference in this particular child, and also that the child is going to school for the first time. We need to give the child some credibility to come to school for the first time.
So I was questioning, is there something more to do with the child? That's it.
All you can do is be very patient and allow the child to settle in. That's number one. Okay. Do you have any other questions? Because we are closing in 1 minute.
Yes. Hello. Yeah, Kausar. Hi. Good evening.
Yes, Miss Kausar. 1 second.
No, I don't have any questions, but this is the dispersal time for our little ones. So all the teachers have left. Amrit, thank you so much on behalf of Kollur team for such a wonderful webinar.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yes, I wasn't there, but I'll surely get the feedback from my team. So I just wanted to, thank you so for this wonderful session.
Do forward us the feedbacks, and we're very happy that you liked our initiative. And please do keep us posted with any topics that you would want us to take up for the upcoming webinars. We will be more than happy to invite more suggestions in.
Thank you so much, Amrit. Surely we'll do it. Right.
Thank you.
Okay, bye.
Thank you everybody for being a wonderful audience, and thank you so much. Keep us posted.